welcome back to They Reminisce Over You. I'm Christina.
And I'm Miguel. This week we are discussing 50 years of hip hop. 1973 is generally what's agreed upon as the start of hip hop. August 11th, there was a party being hosted by DJ Kool Herc. So all through 2023, we're going to be talking about our favorite moments in hip hop with some of our favorite people. And first up, we have the guys from the Q Points podcast, J Ray and DJ Sir Daniel. How you guys doing?
I am fantastic. So happy to see my Canadian cousins again.
Yes.
Indeed.
This is real dope. I am also really well. This is J Ray. I'm also really well and excited to be here and just chop it up with y'all. Like, y'all show so dope. So we are great. I'm grateful to be
Thank
here.
you.
So
Thank you. And speaking of dope shows, round of applause for Q Points being nominated for AMB Award, Best Entertainment Podcast.
Hey.
Thank you.
So, round of applause.
Look, thank you so much. I know I speak for both J Ray and myself when I say that we are so grateful for the love and the support that everybody has been showing us. And this has just put a battery in my back to keep going. For sure.
Yes. Same here. And They Reminisce Over You 2024. So
hey, we trying to keep up with you guys.
Exactly.
Let's go.
You guys open the door, we come right behind you.
Come on in. That's it.
So before we get too far into it, why don't you give us a little bit about yourselves and the show so people who don't know can get familiar.
You want to take it, J Ray?
You go ahead and take it. You're always good with the start off, and then I'll pick it up.
Okay. So, Q Points. Imagine you're eavesdropping in on a conversation between two music nerds who've apparently known each other for a very long time, who have very, very specific likes, very specific niches within the music canon, specifically Black music canon. At Q Points, we say we're dropping the needle on Black music history, and J Ray and I love giving accolades to artists, musicians, bands, producers, journalists within hip hop, phases, cultural moments, and shining a spotlight on those particular things so that the general public does not forget them. We look at ourselves as a time capsule, if you will, a living time capsule of just general Black music history and how much we enjoy it and all the little things that you could never have even thought of. We will bring up that topic and bring it to you, right, J Ray?
Absolutely. DJ Sir Daniel covered everything that is true about Q Points. And I think the other thing that is true about who we are and what we do is we definitely start with the heart and what matters to us first. One of the things that was really important to us when we started was we saw a void in the podcasting world. Where there were just like people and experiences and like artists that folks just weren't talking about, and kind of very Gen X. We were very comfortable leaning into that. Like, we're definitely Yo MTV Raps, Rap City, Pump It Up kids, and wanted to reminisce, and Video Soul, like, so reminiscing on that time, and we saw that opportunity to really bring that. And so you get a little bit of everything with Q Points. So you definitely get the music, but you also get me and DJ Sir Daniel's history, right? You get an opportunity. We do talk about some current events, and to that point, so we don't just have Q Points as a podcast. We have a whole platform. So we have other shows that members of Q Points can watch, like However Comma or QP Science 3000, which aren't quite Q Points, but like are Q Points adjacent and give us an opportunity to engage with our audience in a different way. So we are truly your music big brothers is what we like to tell folks.
That's it.
That's a good way of putting it.
I like that.
That is a good way of putting it. And since we are going to be talking about hip hop, let's just get right into it.
Certainly.
Whoever wants to answer this question first, feel free. But when did you fall in love with hip hop? If you can remember, what was the moment? What was the thing? Was it a show that you saw on TV? Was it a song you heard on the radio? Let us know what it was.
Okay, so for me, this is J Ray again. I will never forget the moment that I fell in love with hip hop. And what's so funny is one of our day one listeners is the person that helped me fall in love with hip hop. So that's
Okay.
really dope, right? So I was actually in sixth grade when I fell in love with hip hop. So hip hop had been a part of my life, all of it, right? For the most part. But when you're a kid, you listen to what your parents are listening to for the most part. And let me tell you what Brenda and Johnny didn't like was rap music. They ain't like that. They thought it was noise and loud talking. So they weren't. So as a child, I could kind of like listen and be like, oh, that's interesting. I might get some pop culture things, but it wasn't like for real love. But in 1988, I was in sixth grade and we were having some sort of break in the day. And Miss Carol, who was our teachers, let my good friend Wani play music videos on the VHS. So they wheeled in the TV.
On the big cart.
Exactly. This is a whole setup for a video. So they wheeled in the cart and this TV is on top and then there's this VHS player and Wani put in this VHS tape and it was basically like all of what became my favorite sounds coming out of it from Yo MTV Raps. So she would tape all the videos and I was like watching Light as a Rock by MC Light and like all of this stuff. And I'm like, what's happening? I've been missing all of this. It was colorful. It was creative. It was poetic. It was everything. So that was the moment in 1988 that I fell in love with hip hop and I never looked back. Even when it's gotten like sketchy and like I don't like what that's giving,
Mhm.
I've still always had a love for it. So that's when it was for me.
And
So
so,
Daniel, what about you?
Sir Daniel here. So I can't say it was one I can't say it was one specific moment, but there was like a hodgepodge, a little pepperings here and there of events that made me fall in love with hip hop. Like for instance, one moment included Theo and Cockroaches, Friends, Romans, and Countrymen rap on the Cosby Show. I just remember like being enamored with the two of them and their dynamic and the dance moves that was going on with the WAP and trying to imitate them rapping and learning their history lesson at the same time. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And then another moment was when I saw Revenge of the Nerds and Lamar's rap, the Lamar rap,
Right.
which was groundbreaking in of itself. And then of course there was the keyboard part, the dun, 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 which then led to the showstopper which Salt and Pepper used for their breakout single, which is the moment because in fifth grade, Leona Fret, yes, that was her name, Leona Fret, let me borrow her Salt and Pepper Hot Cool and Vicious cassette. And I just, I took it home, I put it in my little boombox, and I was just completely blown away because at that point I had never consumed rap in its like complete form in my bedroom and able to sit with the music. And at that point I was just blown away because here are these two girls who looked like people I saw from around the way, and they were having so much fun, and it was dope at the same time. So, like J Ray said, it was that moment I just never looked back. I was like, oh, so what else? Who else is doing what? And so that led me to, turning on Mr. Magic and Red Alert on the weekends. And I grew up 7-Day Adventist, so I had to be up for church in the morning, and listening to Red Alert and Mr. Magic on Friday nights had me like dead tired in church the next day. But there was no turning back. I was completely hooked at that point.
All right, Christina, you're up next.
Actually, you answer first. I want to see if there's a theme.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for me, and we've spoken about this on the show a lot of times, I was lucky enough to grow up with 1580 K Day. which was the first all hip hop station in the US. Now, I had no idea that other places didn't have it like we did. So it basically just came to me. There wasn't like a singular moment, it was always there. And I lived with my grandparents, and my aunt, she's 10 years older than me. So basically everything that she did, I wanted to do. So if she was listening to K-Day, I wanted to listen to K-Day. Whenever she would go to school, I get out 2:30. She gets out at 3:30. I sneak in her room and turn on the radio, listen to it for a good hour before she comes home. So I'm hearing Ice-T, LL Cool J, Beastie Boys, basically everything that was hot and big in 86 and 87, I was taking it. But I think the biggest thing that I remember is listening to K-Day and hearing 6 in the Morning by Ice-T. Like, I had heard nothing like that before. And it's like, he's talking about stuff that I see outside every day, even though I shouldn't have been seeing stuff like that. But it was really familiar to me. And he's making references about LA and whatnot. And then my aunt would come home, she's playing these random records that she has. And I'm like, this is amazing. It's better than what Kiss FM was playing. You hearing Duran Duran and stuff like that. Even though I love that because of hearing it and having no choice, I gravitated towards the hip hop, and it's been in me ever since.
How old would you say you were then?
How old was I?
Can't do the quick maths. How old were you in 86, 87?
11.
Okay.
So 5th grade-ish.
All right. That was the theme I was looking for. I was like, so it all seems like we were all around 10, 11-ish. Well, I was 12 for me. So I had listened to top 40 radio. So I would hear some rap and hip hop, but it'd be like Fresh Prince or, just whatever, the few songs that kind of hit the pop top 40. But I think the moment I realized was like, no, I like hip hop, not just whatever is included in the pop top 10, top 40, was a friend of mine introduced me to Naughty by Nature, the first album. And when I heard that, and I think because it was so different from, what you would hear on the radio, I was like, no, I like this. And Miguel gets a kick out of this all the time because here I am, like 12 years old, wearing an OPP t-shirt to school. I somehow found a Naughty by Nature t-shirt at my local mall. And like, I grew up somewhere at that time I don't even know why they sold it there. But I found it, I snatched it up, walking around school with an OPP t-shirt on, and luckily no one really listened to hip hop like that. So nobody had no idea how inappropriate that was, as far as I know. So that for me is when I never looked back.
And it's funny that you could get away with that just being in a small town outside of Vancouver, where like you and 2 other people probably got that.
Yeah.
Nobody else got the reference.
Yeah.
And that's wild because OPP was a big radio hit, though.
It was. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure somebody knew, but probably like my teachers in grade school wouldn't have known, and like my other 10, 11-year-old classmates wouldn't have known. Maybe, somebody a little older, like a teenager or something, but nobody ever asked me about it as far as I remember. Me and the one friend who introduced me to it, we were the ones that knew.
Your little inside secret.
Yep.
All right, so whoever wants to answer this first, we're going to get into the bigger things now. What is your favorite hip hop album and why?
You go ahead, J-Ray, because I still got
Okay, so this is just going to come out. Okay, so my favorite hip hop album, this is so hard. So my favorite hip hop album of all time, I'm going to answer this in 2 ways.
Okay.
When I think up until college, I would have said the album that we are going to actually be talking about on Q Points, which is Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. They held a very important just piece of my love for hip hop for like a super long time. But as my ear started to change and the way I started to listen to hip hop changed, my all-time favorite hip hop album is A Tribe Called Quest's Midnight Marauders.
Okay.
And for many reasons, but while I think the Low End Theory is a top to bottom great record, I think Midnight Marauders took all of the things that they learned in the Low End Theory years and shined them up a little bit. I
Right.
felt like Q-Tip's production was way cleaner. You could tell that he was getting more influences, like he was taking influences from R&B and pop and incorporating them into the beat making and the way he was deciding to kind of craft some of the production on that record. I loved the storytelling throughout the album. So you get, the Midnight Marauder kind of taking you through the record, which was really dope. In addition, it was just a moody album. So it took you through many different moods. So you got a little bit of hardcore, you got some love, you got some boom bap hip hop, and it really truly is like a complete record. Not only that, they actually did a HIV PSA in that album, which for men touching that topic, because up until then you had BDP, Salt and Pepper was kind of like the big breakout with Let's Talk About AIDS, but even Tribe just like, okay, we're not going to ignore this and we're going to put this in there was really, really important. So yeah, Midnight Marauders is the joint. I still play it from top to bottom. It never gets old. And the album cover, my goodness,
Yes, with all the
with
faces.
all the faces. And DJ Sir Daniel had the opportunity to interview DJ Jazzy Joyce, and just talking about how that all came together is amazing. And so you have folks from the West Coast, you have folks from everywhere on
Yeah.
that album cover, everybody with their headphones on like us.
Yeah.
So if it was now, we would be on that album cover, y'all. That's really dope. Like we would be on that cover like being blown away. So yes, that's it. Midnight Marauders, A Tribe Called Quest.
All right.
That's your
Sir
final
Daniel?
answer.
My final answer.
And it's a dope answer. It really is. It's funny because you mentioned Joyce. During that same interview, we talked about her tour experience with Diggable Planets, and which leads me to my favorite album, the Blowout Comb album by Diggable Planets, which was their second and final album together. And the reason, and this was kind of hard for me because there were so many different albums that I sat with, and I could recall that chronicle different moments in my life, different phases in my life, especially my different ages. And Blowout Comb came out when I was I believe I was a freshman or going into my sophomore year at Georgia State University. And that was a tumultuous time for me personally because I was still trying to figure out what the hell am I doing? Because I really didn't know what I was doing. I was experiencing this freedom but still needing to learn how to structure myself. And along comes this album, and it felt like I was running parallel with this album because Diggable Planets at that time as a group had peaked because they won a Grammy for their first album. They were experiencing all this fame from the first album, but the second album they made a very conscious decision to go in the opposite direction and to really thumb their noses at the establishment that had made them superstars. And there was a lot of different themes. There was blackitalism, black capitalism, which they were talking about, of course, letting the dollar circulate within the black community. Then there was discussions on the album about, black power and, freedom and things of that nature. And I just felt like I just kept hearing myself being referenced to in this album. And sonically, let's just talk about the production was like next level for them. It it sounded like a movie. It was very cinematic for me. It sounded they used those different flourishes from like 70s blaxploitation movies, which gave it that cinematic feel like you were watching Shaft in Africa and all this other stuff. And they were rapping over the beats. Of course, you know, everybody sounded much stronger and clearer in the directions of their rhymes, but they still had a way of being cohesive as a group. There weren't a whole lot of visual representations for that album. I think they may have had 2 videos. Creamy Spies, which is my favorite song off the album. Creamy Spies is my favorite song on the album. Had a video, and it had the spy movie kind of treatment for it, and I just really respected the hell out of them. I didn't feel alienated in any ways when I listened to the album, and I literally could sit with that album in my ugly ass Mercury Sable car with a cassette player, and my little weak speakers was still thumping with adult production, and just learning Atlanta as a emerging adult, learning Atlanta, learning who I am. That cassette tape was right along there with me, so that's why it still holds a special place in my heart.
It's funny you say that. Just 2 days ago, I put on Ninth Wonder and just let it loop for like 20 minutes.
That joint is sick.
It is.
It kicks so hard.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that Joyce had the opportunity to do her thing on that album and
Yeah.
still have her voice be heard, because that, to me, that's like the pinnacle of the album. Mecca's part is like everybody knows that I'm 68 inches above sea level, 93 million miles above these devils. Everybody says that part.
Yeah.
Loves that part. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that song.
All right, you
Christina,
guys, are y'all gonna?
you're up.
Yeah, I'm ready to
Okay.
hear this.
Well, I'm not going to say my favorite, but I'm going to say one of my favorites, or at least for today. So I'm going to pick Outkast, Southern Playlistic, Cadillac Music. And the reason why I decided to go with that for today is at the time I was listening to a lot of, well, probably most of us, East Coast and West Coast artists. So, well, you know them, Nas, I don't know, Snoop, the usual around that 92, 93 time.
Yep.
And then when Outkast came out, was this like 94 was the first album, I believe. They broke what I became accustomed to, was either the East Coast, West Coast thing. And it was so, like the first time I heard Players Ball, I was just like, what is this? And it wasn't just because Diddy convinced Dre to go shirtless in the video, although that did catch my eye. But it also caught my ears. It also caught my ears. And just like the booming sort of like that car culture music, like even though West Coast music has that too, like Hootie Hoo is probably my favorite song on the album, because they have like that 1 minute at the beginning before the beat even drops. And then when it comes in, it gets me every time. It doesn't matter that this is like, what, almost 30 years old. Yeah. Every time that beat drops, I'm like, like it's the first time I've heard it. So that's what I'm going with.
Oh boy, you took one of mine. See, she knows that like Outkast is probably my favorite group of all time. So I'm gonna.
I
let
wasn't
you have
trying
that
to steal on my list.
That's okay. That's okay. I always have a plan B. So I'm going with, and people are probably gonna laugh when they think about the album cover, because he's got on a sheer shirt and he's got his perm, his hair is blown out. Rhythmalism by DJ Quick.
Oh,
that is the album that I'm going with.
Listen, production. This production is legendary.
Yes,
completely
sickening.
I can listen to anything that Quick does. So I'm going with Rhythmalism, because from beginning to end, you just doing like this the entire time.
Flipping
and
that perm.
Yeah, letting the perm wave. And just thinking about it and listening to it when I'm here in Toronto, it just reminds me of home. So it feels like being back in LA. So I'm going with Rhythmalism.
Can I ask everybody a question? Has
Yep.
everybody been able to experience your favorite album in concert? Like your favorite
No.
album artist, and then like you heard specific joints from that album in person in concert.
Favorite album? Since Christina took mine, yes. 2014, we actually came to Atlanta to go to the Outcast at last show. So to see
Oh,
them
Yeah.
do
Nice.
all of those hits in person in Atlanta, that
Yes.
was top of the list for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were going to see them here in Toronto at OVO Fest,
Mhm.
but after that show was announced, it started to come out that they were doing more shows for the 20th anniversary.
Mhm.
Once that one came up, I'm like, we need to see it Outcast in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we flew down, stayed for the weekend, went to the Sunday night show, loved it.
Well, it was funny because we had bought tickets for, I think, the Friday night show.
Yeah.
And then when they announced the Sunday night show, we're like, just get those tickets and we'll sell those other ones. Because
Yeah.
luckily, that last night was when they brought everybody out.
Yeah. If you were a rapper from Atlanta between 86
ooh,
and
yes.
that
yes.
2014, they pretty much brought everybody out. And the ones who didn't perform were there in the front row.
Right.
Like they're shouting out Jermaine Dupri. They brought Killer Mike out on stage. Bone Crusher was there. They even brought Erykah Badu out.
Yeah, and then we
Of
got
course.
VIP tickets, and they were so cheap. So we
Yes.
got to actually be in like a comfortable front area. They had food. They actually had places for you to like actually go to the bathroom and like and not be squished by like. And
Was
I'm
this
only
outdoors?
5 feet tall. It was
Yeah.
outdoors, and
Okay.
I'm really short. So I'm like, for once, I don't have to like look through people's shoulders. So just being able to experience like that performance, but also be comfortable while doing it, made it so much better.
Yeah, and the best part of it for me is the final song they did was Gangsta Shit.
Oh,
And
dope.
as soon as the song started, it started to rain and drizzle a little bit. So their final song was In the Rain, and I didn't care. I loved it.
That's iconic. I think I'm mad that did not get tickets to that show. I missed it.
Me
but-
too. And I was in Atlanta.
And we were both here in Atlanta, but I promise you can hear the city shake.
Mm.
Yeah.
You can hear the city shake because I believe that was in Centennial Park.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it was in the middle. It's in the middle of everything, and it was pure pandemonium around the park for that concert for people that couldn't get in, or
Right.
are at least hanging outside trying to get the vibes too. But yeah, I envy you for that one because that was definitely a moment that we will all remember. Sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
hands down the best concert experience I've
Definitely.
ever had.
That's dope. I have I've seen Q-Tip do stuff from Midnight Marauders. I've never seen Tribe. I wasn't able to see them during, I think there was like a Rock the Bells tour or something that they did before Fife passed away, and I didn't see that. But I've seen Q-Tip do some stuff, but I never saw all four of them together. So that'll be interesting. But it's interesting. So last year I saw Sir Daniel, I saw Diggable Planets for the first
Yes.
time. They killed. Like they killed it. They were in Philly. My brother got me tickets. Of course, I got COVID right after because every time I hang out with my brother, I'm going to get COVID. It's at a show. It's kind of required, I think, at this point. But we went to see Diggable Planets, and they did they did actually most of the joints from Blowout Comb, and it was really, really dope. But I've never seen I never saw Tribe live do Midnight Marauders.
So I envy all of you all because I have yet to see Diggable Planets live. I have never seen them live. They're constantly touring,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and it feels like every time it comes around, they come to Atlanta, I miss it. But I'm going to make it my business to make sure that the next time that they have a bill, I'm going to go see them because I got to get me some Diggable Planets before anything happens, anything changes.
Well, I saw on Twitter the other day that they were performing somewhere, so they're out on the road now.
look, I'm putting on my alerts and make sure I'm aware.
And two things there. They're having a moment because Rolling Stone just did a piece about their first album. Um, and so definitely check out the article. It's dope. It talks about how the sampling on that record was unique and kind of did something interesting for hip hop at that moment. And the second thing I wanted to bring up, all of our artists, and maybe this is just because of when people fall in love with music, but all of our artists are kind of from the same generation
Yeah.
of hip hop.
Yes.
And that the one for the albums that we picked, and that's really interesting too. Even the later album you picked from Quick, because that was like later 90s.
Yeah, that was
But
98.
yeah, it was like 98. But of course, Quick is from the same generation that we're talking about with Cast and Diggable Planets and Tribe. So I don't know what that means, but I do think it's interesting that all of our folks are from kind of the same period of time in hip hop.
I think for me, that was a time when everything didn't sound the same. So there was a lot of variety.
Mhm.
And it wasn't weird to hear the artists that you just named being played back to back on the radio, or the videos being played back to back. It didn't really like stand out. Like, why is this one being played next to this one? Everything just kind of went together at that time.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that a lot, and I don't know if it's because, after you get to a certain age, your ears don't hear music the same thing. But that's what we always say is at that era, it seemed like there was so much more variety. I don't know if that's actually true or if that's just how we remember it. Or if it's just now that I'm old, I've fallen into that everything sounds the same category. But I mean, I think we are actually losing out on regionality in today's music, though, because we have everybody kind of shares this online space, whereas before you did hear stuff from other places, but you were also very more insulated within your own space. So I think that helped create very different regional sounds.
Absolutely.
And with that said, what do you guys think about like current hip hop? Are you the get off my lawn, I don't listen to Lil Uzi Vert types? Or are you open to like newer artists?
See, Jerry and I have had those conversations a lot. And we're very intentional about not sounding like the two old men. And we try to make sure that we're not the two old men in the Muppet Show that are sitting up in the balcony, booing everything. We don't want to be those guys. However, I think we fairly critique certain things, and we look for the commonalities on why music is doing what it's doing, why a particular generation isn't adhering to certain rules as if you were. But then when you think about it, each generation likes to break rules. Each generation feels it's necessary to break rules and to do something completely different that sets them apart from everybody else. I was just not a fan of the visceral, like the kind of the turning up of noses at the older generation. Now that, if you want to put me on a defensive, do that. Start, talking about old heads and shut up, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Y'all, and the throwing around of the word y'all ain't relevant. That's not relevant. What's not relevant?
Right.
That, that kind of stuff puts a beat in my bonnet. I'll admit to that. I don't feel, again, because music is such an emotional thing. And if you heard what I said earlier about each of us, I'm sure if we unpack why those records were so important to us, there's also an emotional attachment to the music that we were listening to because of whatever was going on in our lives at that time. I'm sure if we pull a 19-year-old now and ask them, why does Ice Spice, why do they relate to that? Why do they love her so much? I'm sure hopefully they can articulate to us what emotional attachment they have to that music, because music, second to smell, I think music is one of those things that jogs a lot of memories, or will help us store memories in our brains, e- like smell, right? Or unlocks different memories. And so I just feel like I don't have an emotional attachment to a lot of the things that I'm hearing these days. And so I just stay in my lane. I pay attention to what's going on. I pay attention to trends, especially being a DJ, being a podcast host who talks about music, because we're experts in our fields. All of us here right now, we're experts in this field because we lived this. We consumed it. We're part of it. But I do like to keep my eyes and ears open and see what's going on, and I also pay attention to what's happening globally, what's happening to us as human beings right now, and how that can possibly affect the music and indicate what kind of music is being put out today.
Yeah, I agree with everything Sir Daniel said. I enjoy a number of things now. I Sir Daniel will tell you, like, that Little Sims does it for me. Like the Little Sims, the last record and the record that came out in 2022, so the 2021 and the 2022 records, I really enjoy. Huge fan of what the stuff that Kendrick is doing, the JID. I like what JID is doing. So there are definitely new hip hop folks that I really am into. But I will tell you that there is a thread between those folks that I like, in that they respect the history that Sir Daniel was talking about. Like, they understand that history and they're like drawing a line from that to what they're doing, and they're calling back to it. I appreciate that so much. And so I agree with Sir Daniel in, I I will listen, but I do get turned off with how much connection to history we're losing. For instance, I was on Facebook yesterday, and one of my Facebook friends, teacher, he's younger than all of us on this call, said, "I can't believe that my students, my high school students, don't know who Wu-Tang Clan is.
Hmm.
Just don't know who that is."
Okay, that's a shocker.
Wow.
And once, that's crazy to me, but you know what? A person came on to the post and said, actually, it kind of makes sense. Music for us was communal. We had radio, we had videos, we had all of these things that we weren't programming it ourselves. Like,
Right.
we had our cassettes and we might tape stuff off the radio, but we could only get it. We either went out and we got the record, or we heard it on the radio, or we watched a video. Whereas now with streaming, it's so cheap. Everybody's programming their own playlists.
Mm.
So you only have to listen to the stuff that you like. And nobody, I listen to the radio now. I didn't 5 years ago. I guess it's my that's funny, my age is showing up. I actually listen to the radio, like in the car. Sometimes I'll have, like, half the time I'll have my phone, but the other half of the time I'm just listening to whatever's on classic R&B radio. Like, so that's how I keep up with, like, I know what the new people is doing now. But there is something that gets lost, and that scares me. I so to answer your question, love a lot of what the new folks are doing. Think a lot of folks are doing some great stuff, but I don't I'm afraid that so much of the history is getting lost to time that I don't know what hip hop is going to sound like in another 50 years.
Well, can I offer a little pushback
Mhm.
on something J. Ray said? So about the teacher friend saying that they couldn't understand why the kids didn't know who Wu-Tang was. When we were that age and younger, we knew who Aretha Franklin was. We knew who Marvin Gaye was. We knew who the
Mhm.
Temptations were. We knew who Ludwig van Beethoven is, right? I think, and somebody said this, in the information age, if you don't know something, it's willful. And so a part of me does put some of the responsibility in their laps. I do think their parents, their elders, you know, I don't know if we're losing recipes and then they're not cleaning up
Right.
it Saturday mornings with the music blaring
Right.
and teaching them what they should be listening to. This is what you clean up to in our age, you cleaning up to Wu-Tang. You know, Wu-Tang
Right.
Clan ain't nothing to F with. And you do those things. And I think maybe and I'm just this is just not a scientific guess, but I'm just, thinking out loud here. Because they're so information driven and so attached to community via devices,
Mm.
there's some separation there's a lot of separation between us.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I just feel like there's this real, I don't want to deal with that old stuff. We're new and we're young and this is what's popping over here that, taken to the max. We did that. Yes, we didn't want to hear that old timey stuff sometimes. We turned it off. But we still had a respect for it. We still listened to it. The outlets still respected it and put it on a pedestal. We saw representations of it on our platforms like videos and the video shows, and to J Ray's point, the radio and whatnot. So I don't know. I think there's like a willfulness there of not just wanting to not just deal with any of that old stuff at all. And that is kind of a turnoff. But like J Ray said, we listen, we keep our ears and eyes open to what the kids are doing, and so we can talk about it, because we want to have an understanding of what they're going through.
What about you, Chris?
I have a theory that kind of goes with that in terms of maybe a willfulness of why we're losing recipes. I think with our generation, we are used to looking things up because we had to. We're used to doing before, to just get a book out of the library, we had to go through the Dewey Decimal System and look through the cards. So I think for us, it's
Those
second
long
nature.
drawers
Right?
and like little cards.
Right?
Oh my God.
My goodness, like pre-internet, so I think we're just kind of used to looking for information when we're interested in something. And because like my parents didn't grow up listening, I didn't grow up listening to like my parents' music wasn't, soul music or R&B music or something. So I discovered a lot of these older artists through hip hop's sampling. So I would hear something and I'd be like, oh, what's that? And I would used to read liner notes and I would see that and I would look it up. And it was just so natural to do that, right? And I'm a teacher as well. So what I had noticed with my students is some people were just naturally curious. And would have students that maybe weren't doing as well as other students. So I thought, oh, maybe I need to give them more resources, more information. So the students that were naturally curious, the more I gave them, the more they would soak up. But the ones that weren't, it didn't matter if I gave them more information. They just didn't want to look it up. So I don't know if maybe because you think that it's so easy to get information now, but at the same time, you're kind of overloaded with it. And because we had to look for so much more, I think we're just more inclined to do that. Whereas kids now, and here I am sounding old, they just kind of whatever,
These kids these days.
Yes, because you'll see things on Twitter or YouTube comments. Someone will just ask someone and be like, "Hey, what's the name of that song?" or whatever, and I'm like, "You're gonna wait 2
Which is
hours
so
and hope
weird
someone
for me,
responds,
too.
or
Like,
just
you
go
could
to
just
Google
look
right
that
now."
up.
Yeah. So I'm just like, why would I ask someone and hope for a response within 2 hours or so? Maybe. So yeah, I personally think it's just we consume things differently.
Yeah, I agree with all of those. And Christina and I have had this conversation several times. And just like you guys, I try not to be the old dude yelling at the cloud and get off my lawn. So I try to embrace a lot of things too. But I find that the newer stuff the male artists I'm really not into
Mhm.
because it's a lot of auto tune and singing and things like that. Whereas the women are just spitting. Like
Yeah.
I love Flo Milli.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Yes.
this new chick out of New
Lola.
York, Lola Brooke.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I love Glorilla.
Cool.
I love all of that. And it's the women that I'm into these days.
Have you heard
Yeah.
Gloss Up?
And
Big
yes.
Gloss?
So
I mean,
that's the stuff that
spitting.
I'm listening to.
Yes.
Okay, so this is actually really interesting. So Sir Daniel and I have also talked about this. How for like the first time in history, you know, I blame Nikki for this, and it's a good thing where hip hop as a pop culture phenomenon since like the 2010s has been because of women MCs. Like really just kind of really stepping up and doing all of these things that the men used to do. Right? So we wouldn't have hip hop on the charts for the most part. You're gonna get a Drake. We
Right.
know we're gonna do that. You're gonna get a
Drake's, your
Kendrick,
Kendricks,
but then
J.
all of
Cole.
the other hip hoppers are gonna be, you know, women MCs.
Yeah. And like I said, that's what I'm into these days.
Mhm.
And when we were doing our episode about Jodeci, we were talking about content and things like that. And Christina doesn't like this idea, but I say that it's our fault because we're like absentee parents. Because these kids are learning from us.
Right.
Like we grew up listening to Jodeci
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that and wonder why there's a Chris Brown running these streets now.
Right.
So we can't be mad at that. But at the same time, I would like to see a little bit more effort from a lot of these quote unquote popular artists. That's my rant. With the get off the lawn and get off my cloud and all that good stuff.
I'm here for it. I agree with you. Like, all those ladies have been carrying the game on their back. Megan,
Mhm.
Lotto, the City Girls alone, and they've become like pop cultural phenomenons, which is what the guys aren't doing. They're not emblazoning themselves on the psyche of America like those ladies are. You know what I'm saying? They're not etching themselves on Mount Rushmore. So they really got to step their cookies up.
Yeah. But Lola Brooke, that's the one.
This new
That's
favorite.
the one.
I gotta check out Lola
Brooke.
Brooke. I'm unfamiliar. I gotta check out Lola Brooke.
Oh,
so-
I think
Don't
you'll
play with
like
it.
her.
Don't play with it. Don't play with
Foxy Brown 2.0.
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good description.
Voice
Except
is
she's
in the
like
basement.
she's
Yep.
like
I
5
love
it.
feet and 80 pounds.
Yes.
She's tinier than Little
tiny.
Kim. She is
Yeah.
tinier
Oh,
than
wow.
Little Kim. Yes.
But that voice,
Yes. But that
Okay.
voice, she is definitely 6 feet tall for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah, I just appreciate that the women are out here like they're rapping.
Mm-hmm.
Even like maybe if sometimes the lyrics could still be better or something.
Right.
But like I appreciate. I'm not saying all or anyone specific, but I'm just saying like at least the style, the bravado, the enunciation. Like they're out here rapping.
Yes. I love when I can understand what somebody is saying.
Ooh,
Yes.
can we give it up for understanding and trying to make the rhyme make sense? Like I
Yes.
feel like I need to I get that metaphor. Whereas for a
Right.
minute there, it was like you're just
Yeah.
putting words together.
They weren't, but J Ray, they weren't even trying to rhyme at one point.
Exactly.
They weren't.
That's
even
how we got like Blueface and them.
Mhm.
exactly.
Oh,
Rhyme
And-
or rhyme on beat.
Or rhyme on beat. But here's
Okay, I did give them that. Okay, because we did have rappers that rapped offbeat, in our day. Guru,
Silk the Shock
one
is
of my
the worst
favorite
rapper of all time.
MCs, was often a little behind or a little ahead.
Silk the Shocky. You're absolutely right.
So-
with the,
But,
with the
but
double
oh my
up and
gosh!
the-
But lyrically, dear God,
he still ate them up. Still ate them up. Absolutely. But God, oh man, I was about to say something and I completely forgot. Okay, we'll just keep talking, and it'll come back. It'll come back.
all right. So this might be a good time for us to take a quick break.
cool.
And we'll be right back.
Are you enjoying this podcast?
Hell yeah.
If you're enjoying it as much as he is, there's a couple things you could do. You can feel free to drop some coins into our collection plate at coffee.com/Troy Podcast, and that's coffee, ko-fi.com. Link is also in the show notes. We're self-funded, so any support would be appreciated. And if you don't have any extra coins to spare, just leave us a 5-star rating or review. Like J-Lo's love, it won't cost you a thing.
You just sitting at home on the couch anyhow.
All right, thanks.
Back to the show. And we are back with They Reminisce Over You. We're going to end this episode off with a game we like to play called This or That. Questions are going to be pretty simple at the beginning, but they're going to get progressively harder as we get to towards the end.
I like that.
For an example, what's the better album, Off the Wall or Thriller?
Awful.
It could go either way.
You're choosing violence. Okay.
So it's questions like that. Depending on the day, Off the Wall is the better one. Next day it might be Thriller. All right, so you guys ready?
Yes.
Indeed. Let's do it.
All right. So the first question: in their prime, which hip hop magazine was better, Double XL or The Source?
Ooh.
I'm going to say The Source.
I also agree, The Source. I think Double XL had a bit of a, they had just kind of a corporate shine to them. I like The Source. The Source was gritty in their prime.
Okay.
So The Source.
All right. Next question: Yo MTV Raps or Rap City?
Yo MTV Raps.
Ooh.
I'm Yo MTV Raps.
Are we talking Monday through Friday Young TV Raps, or are we talking Saturday with Fat Fry Freddy?
You can combine those two versus
See,
Rap
I
City.
combined them in my head. Like I see them as one thing.
I got love for Chris and for Big Tig and all those guys, but I'm gonna give it to Young TV Raps.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're stepping it up here.
Okay.
Greatest hype man of all time, Flavor Flav or Spliff Star?
Ooh.
I told you they were going to get progressively harder.
All right, so not for nothing, Spliff Star is amazing. Amazing. It can match Busta Rhymes' energy nonstop. But come on, Flavor Flav is just iconic. He's straight up iconic, from the clock to the grill to the crazy face, the hands in the face dance, everything you just cannot. It's Flavor Flav for me.
J-Ray?
So I'm trying to because I told you PE held a special place for me. So I'm trying to take that and I'm trying to put it where it needs to be in order for me to make this choice. Interestingly enough, so I am actually going to go with Spliff Star. Here's why. Spliff, when I think of the concept of a hype man, I actually think Flav transcended hype man, because he also had his own thing. He would have his own raps and all of that stuff. Spliff, yes, but I think he was definitely the yin to Busta's yang in a true hype man fashion. He would be like the Jerome to Morris Day. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
And so I'm going to say that Spliff is the greatest hype man.
I can't be mad at that.
Me neither.
When we went to Made in America in 2015, I believe, Public Enemy performed, and I watched Flavor Flav do his thing. Then he went up and got on the drum set, started playing the drums.
Ridiculous.
Next song, he came out and grabbed the bass and started playing the bass. And I'm like, when did he learn to do this?
Right? Did he play the piano too? That man
He did.
He is a
He got on the
classically trained
keys.
musician. Yep.
I'm like, where did this come from? I was not expecting that for Flavor Flav at all. And I love PE, but I was not expecting all of that in the performance. Next one. All right. So I did some investigating on you guys. I know that J-Ray, you up in Philly right now, right? Sir Daniel, you down in Atlanta right now. J Ray,
Facts.
here's a question for you.
Okay.
Only one can stay. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince or the Roots?
Oh, the Roots.
All right.
That was quick.
Okay.
Wow, that was with no
No
hesitation.
hesitation.
That was really quick.
Sheesh.
So I will
No
tell you
hesitation.
why. I respect and feel like the history of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince is so critical because one, we got DJ Jazzy Jeff out of that whole deal, right? And just squarely one of the greatest DJs in the entire culture. How and the reason why I picked the Roots, it's because, and one day I think we need to do this, is to start like put them in the center and then all the things that came from them. They sprouted so much of what came out of hip hop and R&B from like 1999 through like the mid 2000s. Like
Right.
when you listen to all of them groups, you like they all ran through the Roots crew in some way, shape, or form. So that's why I say they definitely stay. Their tentacles are just too great. We would lose too many people if they weren't around.
All right, let's take it to Atlanta.
So
Outkast
Oh,
or
okay.
Jermaine
You
Dupri.
get an Atlanta one.
Yeah.
Oh,
you get
okay. So I
Atlanta
get in Atlanta. So Outkast or Jermaine Dupri.
or Jermaine Dupri.
Ooh.
No, it is. It's difficult because one would think, because like if I was using J Ray's theory, I would say Outkast, right? If I were to use J Ray's theory of why I would say Outkast. But I am going to say Jermaine Dupri simply because a lot of people don't realize how much of the culture Jermaine Dupri has touched. And because we're talking about someone who was introduced really to everyone on tour with Houdini and who gained fame as a dancer and actually touched all the elements of hip hop, dancer, producer, song, rapper, all of those things, DJs. And so when we think about, we would not have as many endorsements and let's see, Atlanta, I'm just going to say Atlanta would not be the music mecca for hip hop had it not been for Jermaine and Criss Cross and that phenomenon putting the spotlight on Atlanta. Yes, we had Jack the Rapper and all of those things going on here, but people still don't even know about the magnitude of Jack the Rapper. But I do believe I saw a change after Jermaine Dupri did his thing with those kids, and we had the invent of boy bands, kid bands. Kids, you know, you had Criss Cross come out, and so everybody thought they could have a kid group come out in hip hop. The way that they dressed, they were young enough to appeal to kids, but still pushed enough records that adults got into them as well, which made them marketable. Then you see Coca-Cola and Sprite and people like that come in to invest money in hip hop because, oh, this is popping, this is youth culture, we want to be a part of this. And it literally set the stage for everything that's happened in Atlanta since 1990. Honest to God's truth. I know and let's talk about what Jermaine has done since then. You know, with Mariah Carey alone,
Usher.
the emancipation of Mimi alone is
Yeah.
out of there. Janet Jackson, and Usher, to your point. You know, the man has touched not only hip hop, but he's also touched R&B. And if we're talking about the Southern region, if we're talking about moguls, music moguls, Jermaine Dupri is definitely at the top of that conversation list.
All right, so this is going to be the hardest question.
Okay.
And I'll pose it to both of you, and you can answer it any way you want to.
All right.
Which city has the greatest rappers, Atlanta or Philly?
Hmm.
Ooh,
So
that's
we talking? Are we
hard.
talking skills and influence?
Let's just go with influence.
Oh,
Actually, you know what?
Both.
Let's go with skills. Let's go
Okay.
with skills.
Oh.
Let's make it real hard.
Because there's some, not for nothing. If we talking about like people born and raised here, or because that's the thing, Atlanta
It could
has
be
a lot of
transplants.
transplants.
You can include the brat.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow, this is really, really hard. I think here's the thing about Philly.
Mhm.
My answer is Atlanta. Here's why. The thing about Philly is um it's hard to be seen here and to get out. Like a lot of rappers don't get out of Philly. So when we think about the fact that Black Thought is on TV now and the Fresh Prince is like a movie star, that's an anomaly. Like there
Right.
are so few folks that make it out. Like so that's why these folks are such a big deal, like the Jills and the Wills and all of that, the Roots and because had the Roots not made a shift, they would not have made it out either, right? They had to make some changes. Um Philly's definitely got spitters. I think Atlanta wins because they have sheer volume. Like there's so many folks that call Atlanta home. So I'm thinking of Outkast. I'm thinking of Goody Mob, in particular CeeLo. I'm thinking of JID. I'm thinking of there's just so many. I can go down the line of respected MCs that can kind of hold their own on the mic. What was the question again? I want to make sure I'm answering.
Which city has the greatest rappers?
Based on skill.
Based on skill. Which city has the greatest rappers based on skill? You know what? I'm changing it. It's Philly. Sorry.
Okay.
It's
You
changing
know
it.
what?
It's Philly. It's Philly.
I am going to hold up the Atlanta banner simply because there's a local artist by the name of Chilio here in Atlanta, and Chilio created a t-shirt line that says Atlanta influences everything. And so I'm saying Atlanta because if you listen to your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, no matter where they're from, their flow has been influenced by Atlanta slang, by Atlanta swagger, Atlanta production, music production. Historically, we can go back as far as MC Shy D, who is originally from the Bronx, but has been in Atlanta for so many years. Atlanta claims him as one of theirs. Even his flow has influenced a lot of rappers down here, and I don't think he gets enough credit. But there's so many people that the diversity of Atlanta rappers needs to be expressed as well, and pinpoint and magnified as well. So if you're talking about the influence that this city has across the globe, I think that alone puts Atlanta rappers just a taste above Philly rappers. There are spitters. Philly got spitters for sure. But like J Ray said earlier, a lot of times they don't pay homage to their spitters like they should. Like we were on Twitter last night, J Ray, you, me, and uh what is his name? The DJ down here. Our guy
Who?
from the DJs with hourglass in them.
Oh, Jeremy Avalon.
Jeremy Avalon. We were talking about how y'all. There was this picture of Philly rappers. How are you gonna put all this collage of Philly rappers up? You don't have Bahamadia. You don't have EST from 3 Times Dope.
No
You don't
Tierra
have
Whack. I'm
no
like,
Tierra Whack. No Lady B. No Yvette Money. None of these people. No Ice Cream Tea.
right.
So I'm like,
Oh man.
so but again, I'm giving it to Atlanta because I've witnessed it. Atlanta has got influence is just so potent across the world that you cannot deny that Atlanta is the home of some of the dopest rappers at this
With that list for Philly though that you just ran down,
Mhm.
you brought back a name I haven't thought about in at least 25 years. EST.
Oh my
3
God.
Times Dope.
Who-
I'm gonna have to pull up Live from Magniculous Land and listen to it.
You know what I'm
tonight.
saying? Who wrote a joint that's like for like Britney Spears? Like EST
Right.
good. Like
and was sampled by Beyonce, right?
I
Yeah.
think yep. Yes.
Yep. So I'm gonna have to throw on some 3 Times Dope in his honor.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a really interesting question.
Yes.
I do definitely agree with Sir Daniel. I think the influence of Atlanta at this point, Atlanta has been the center of hip hop, and I said this recently, for at least 20 years now.
For sure.
So it definitely moved from New York down to Atlanta, and mostly because everybody from New York just went to Atlanta.
Precisely.
And yeah, I know Atlanta now is like, even though I'm gonna come back, Sir Daniel, Atlanta's like, we closed. I'm like, but I was already here though. I'm just coming back.
we held your spot, J. Ray. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Oh man. So I think we did it.
Yeah.
We got through it. No blood was drawn with these questions.
No, we're
still
mature.
friends.
Exactly. We're mature. We can agree to disagree and still dap it up and get a chopped cheese or a Philly cheese steak.
Not a chopped cheese. That's New York.
That's
Philly, you want to get a
excuse me.
cheesesteak.
Sorry about that. And hey, look, the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl.
The
so
Eagles are
look,
going to the Super Bowl.
You got
They
that.
are.
You got that.
All right, so we've been at it for about an hour now. I think we should wrap this up. Is there anything you guys want to tell to the people? Anything you want to push? Let the streets know what's going on.
Do it, J. Ray.
What we got? So listen, I think what's really important. First of all, thank y'all for having us on your show. Like, we absolutely respect your show so much. It's so well done, and so we appreciate y'all inviting us over here to hang out with y'all.
Absolutely.
Of course.
No, but definitely, I would say just check us out. Like, definitely check us out. Check out the website, qpoints.com. We're continuing to make enhancements to it. Folks can watch some very cool things. Me and Sir Daniel do However Comma, and I curse a lot on that show. It's a different show.
Yeah.
We talk about pop culture and what's happening in the news and in the world, and I just kind of let loose over there. So I would say just check us out on our website at qpoints.com, and also you can follow us individually. So online, I'm at JRay is the name,
and I'm at DJ Sir Daniel. And don't forget, pick up some merch. You might you go to our website, you'll see a very nice sweatshirt like the one I'm wearing, the hoodie I'm wearing, that says "Stop tweeting, start rapping." Very appropriate for Canadian weather, especially in Toronto. It's very
it's about
warm
11
and
degrees
comfy.
right now.
Listen, it's perfect, and it makes a statement because there's plenty of spitters in Canada as well. We all had that discussion. So, like J. Ray said, please just follow us, just support us. And again, thank you so much for having us. Shout out to your listeners. We love you guys. We appreciate you so much here at They Reminisce. So, for sure.
And thank you guys for doing this with us.
And we will put links to all of that in our show notes.
Yes, we will have links with all of that. You got anything you want to add, Christina?
Not really. Thanks again for coming out, and it was fun to switch things up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, this is our second interview. Yes, second interview. So we're going to try and do a few more collaborations throughout the year, like I said, with the 50 years of hip hop stuff. So, of course, we
I
had
love
to start with you guys.
Thank you so much. I
All
can't
right.
wait. I can't wait for the other ones.
Yeah, we appreciate it, y'all.
Thanks for doing it. So we're going to wrap this up here. Thank you again for listening. You can check us out at troypodcast.com, on the Bird and the Gram at Troy Podcast. And yeah, get the show notes, get all the things that you're looking for, and we'll be back again in 2 weeks. Deuces, silly gooses.
Peace.